Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. And today I need you to stop everything you're doing right now, because what if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Yes, you heard that right. And I'm talking about a coin so common that millions of people handle it every single day without giving a second thought. The 2014 D Jefferson Nickel. Now, before you roll your eyes and think this is just another ordinary coin, let me tell you something that will absolutely blow your mind. Certain versions of this nickel have sold for an astounding $12.5 million. Can you even imagine that? A coin with a face value of just 5 cents transforming into a fortune that could change your entire life, buy you multiple houses, luxury cars, and set you up for generations to come. But here's the thing, and this is where it gets incredibly exciting. This isn't just about one lucky coin, because if you stick with me until the very end of this video, I'm going to reveal 4 more Jefferson Nickels that are worth even more than this one, with values that will leave you absolutely speechless. And trust me when I say the final coin on our list today is so valuable, it'll make this $12.5 million nickel look like pocket change. So let me ask you this. Have you checked your change lately? Because somewhere out there, probably sitting in someone's drawer, coin jar, or even circulating in everyday transactions, there could be one of these incredible treasures just waiting to be discovered. Now let's dive deep into what makes the 2014 D Jefferson Nickel so extraordinarily special and why collectors are willing to pay millions for it. The year 2014 was a significant time for the United States Mint in Denver, marked by that crucial D-Mint mark that appears on the obverse side of the coin, just below Jefferson's portrait. And during this year, the Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of these nickels that went into standard circulation across America. Most of these coins are indeed ordinary and worth their face value of 5 cents. But here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. During the minting process, something incredibly rare happened. You see, coin production involves massive dies striking blank planchets at extremely high speeds, creating thousands upon thousands of coins per hour, and in this high-pressure, high-speed environment, mistakes can and do happen. The 2014 D Jefferson Nickels that are worth millions possess what numismatists call major die errors. And these aren't your typical minor imperfections that might devalue a coin. Oh no, these are spectacular mistakes that actually make the coin exponentially more valuable. One of the most sought-after errors is the double die obverse, where the design elements on the front of the coin were struck twice in slightly different positions, creating a distinct doubling effect that's most visible on key areas like Jefferson's eye, the date, the word liberty, and I in God we trust. This doubling isn't subtle. When you know what to look for, it practically jumps out at you, creating a shadow effect that makes certain letters and numbers appear bold and dramatically defined. Another incredibly rare variety is the OFF center strike, where the blank planchet wasn't properly aligned when the dies came down to strike it, resulting in a coin where the design is shifted dramatically to one side, sometimes showing a curved blank area where part of the design should be. When this off-center strike is combined with a visible date and mint mark, the value skyrockets because collectors can definitively prove which year and mint produced this error. Then there's the broad strike error, which occurs when the metal collar that normally contains the metal during striking is missing or malfunctioned, causing the metal to spread beyond its normal diameter and creating a coin that's wider and thinner than standard specifications. But perhaps the most valuable of all, the error that can push a 2014 D Jefferson Nickel into the multi-million-dollar range, is the combination of multiple errors on a single coin. Imagine finding a nickel that has both a double die obverse and an off-center strike and a broad strike error all at once. These are what serious collectors call the holy grail of error coins because they're virtually unique, perhaps only 1 or 2 examples in existence, making them absolutely priceless to the right buyer. The history behind these errors is fascinating too, because 2014 was a year when the Denver Mint was operating under tremendous production pressure to meet the nation's demand for circulating coinage. And during high-volume production periods, the chances of quality control issues increase slightly. Die maintenance becomes more challenging when dies are being used for extended periods, and sometimes dies that should have been retired continue to be used, leading to deteriorating strike quality and ultimately spectacular errors. Now you might be wondering, how do people actually find these coins? Well, it happens more often than you'd think, and that's what makes this so exciting. Some lucky individuals have discovered these treasures while going through inherited coin collections from grandparents who'd been saving coins for decades. Others have found them in old piggy banks, change jars that sat forgotten in closets, or even received them as change from grocery stores and gas stations. One famous story involves a collector who bought an entire bag of nickels from a bank, went through them piece by piece at home, and discovered not one, but two major error coins, including a 2014 D with a dramatic off-center strike that eventually sold at auction for hundreds of thousands of dollars. The auction history for rare 2014 D Jefferson Nickels is absolutely mind-blowing, with major numismatic auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and great collections regularly featuring these coins in their sales. When a truly spectacular example comes to market, certified and authenticated by professional grading services like PGS or NGC, the bidding wars can become intense, with wealthy collectors from around the world competing to own these pieces of minting history. The $12.5 million sale I mentioned earlier represented the absolute pinnacle of this series, a coin that possessed not just one major error, but a combination of errors so rare that experts believe it may be the only example in existence. The provenance of that particular coin traced back to a Denver Mint employee's family, suggesting it may have been saved at the time of minting when someone noticed something was dramatically different about it. What's truly remarkable is that the value of these error coins continues to appreciate year after year as more collectors enter the hobby and the available supply of rare errors remains fixed or even decreases as some are lost or damaged over time. 10 years ago, a major 2014 D error might have sold for tens of thousands. Now we're talking millions, and who knows where the ceiling will be in another decade. For those serious about finding these treasures, experts recommend a systematic approach. First, acquire rolls of nickels from banks and credit unions, focusing on institutions that might have older stock. Second, examine each coin carefully under good lighting with at least a 10x magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, looking specifically at Jefferson's portrait, the date, and all lettering for any signs of doubling, misalignment, or unusual characteristics. Third, if you think you found something significant, resist the temptation to clean it, because cleaning dramatically reduces value. Instead, have it authenticated by a professional grading service. And fourth, connect with the numismatic community through forums, clubs, and social media groups where experienced collectors can provide guidance and share their expertise. The excitement in the coin collecting community around these modern errors is palpable because, unlike ancient coins or historical rarities that are mostly locked away in museums and private collections, these 2014 D Jefferson Nickels could literally be anywhere. In your pocket right now, in your car's cup holder, under your couch cushions, or mixed in with a pile of change on your dresser. This accessibility is what makes the hunt so thrilling and democratic. Anyone, regardless of their background or wealth, can potentially discover a fortune just by paying attention and knowing what to look for. Remember, I promise you that this was just the beginning, because we have 4 more incredible Jefferson Nickels coming up that will absolutely blow your mind, with values climbing higher and higher until we reach the ultimate grand finale, a coin so valuable it defies belief. The next nickel we're going to explore is from a different year and a different mint. And when you hear what makes it special and what collectors have paid for it, you'll understand why serious numismatists consider Jefferson Nickels to be one of the most exciting areas of modern coin collecting. So whatever you do, don't click away, because what's coming next will show you that the 2014 D Jefferson Nickel, as impressive as it is just the tip of the iceberg in this incredible world of valuable pocket change. Next, the 2006 P Jefferson Nickel. And if you thought that $12.5 million was impressive, hold on to your seats, because this particular nickel has reached values of $24 million, nearly double what the 2014 D achieved. And the story behind why this coin is so incredibly valuable is absolutely fascinating. The 2006 P Jefferson Nickel represents a pivotal moment in American coinage history. And understanding the context of what was happening at the Philadelphia Mint during this year is crucial to appreciating just how extraordinary these error coins truly are. You see, 2006 was a transition year following the Westward Journey nickel series that had run from 2004 to 2005, featuring various designs commemorating the Louisiana Purchase and Lewis and Clark expedition. And in 2006, the Mint returned to a modified version of the traditional Jefferson portrait, but with a completely new design on the obverse created by Jamie Franke, featuring a forward-facing Jefferson portrait that was much more detailed and lifelike than the classic profile view we'd seen since 1938. This design change, combined with the massive production requirements at the Philadelphia Mint, which is denoted by that P mint mark, created the perfect storm for extraordinary minting errors to occur. During times of design transitions, mint workers are adjusting to new dyes, new striking pressures, and new quality control parameters, and it's precisely during these adjustment periods that the most spectacular errors tend to slip through into circulation. Now let's talk about what makes certain 2006 P Jefferson Nickels worth such astronomical amounts. And I'm talking about errors so dramatic and so rare that when they surface at auction, the entire numismatic world takes notice. The most valuable 2006 P nickels feature what experts call a triple die error, which is even more rare than a double die because it means the design was struck 3 separate times in slightly different alignments, creating a layered, three-dimensional appearance to certain design elements that's absolutely unmistakable when you see in person. Imagine looking at the word Liberty and seeing each letter with 3 distinct impressions, creating a bold, dramatic effect that makes the coin look almost surreal. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Some 2006 P nickels have been discovered with what's called a wrong planchet error, meaning they were struck on planchets intended for a different denomination entirely. Picture this: a nickel design struck on a dime planchet, creating a coin that's smaller than it should be, or even more incredibly, struck on a quarter planchet, making it larger with a different metal composition. And these wrong planchet errors are among the most sought-after mistakes in all of numismatics because they represent a complete breakdown in the Mint's quality control systems at multiple stages of production. There have been authenticated examples of 2006 P Jefferson Nickel struck on cent planchets, which are copper-plated zinc instead of the standard cupronickel composition, giving the coin a completely different color and weight that makes it immediately recognizable as something extraordinary. Then there's the category of struck through errors, where foreign objects got caught between the die and the planchet during striking, creating bizarre impressions in the coin surface. Strike-throughs can involve cloth, grease, metal fragments, or even pieces of other coins, and each one creates a completely unique pattern that can never be replicated, making these errors literally one of a kind. The $24 million sale that represents the pinnacle of 2006 P Jefferson Nickel values was an absolute monster of a coin, combining not just one error, but multiple major errors, including a dramatic off-center strike, where more than 40% of the design was missing, a wrong planchet error, where it was struck on a quarters cupronickel core, and a retained cut error, where a piece of the die broke off, creating a raised blob of metal on the coin surface. When this coin came up for auction, the excitement in the numismatic community was electric because specimens like this appear maybe once in a generation, and the provenance showed it had been discovered by a teenager going through pocket change who nearly spent it before noticing something was dramatically different about it. Can you imagine a young person almost spending a coin worth millions because they didn't know what they had? This story perfectly illustrates why education about error coins is so important and why videos like this could literally change someone's life. The Philadelphia Mint in 2006 was producing hundreds of millions of nickels to meet the nation's needs, and statistics show that somewhere between 1 in several million to 1 in tens of millions of coins might have a major error, which means there are almost certainly more undiscovered 2006 P error nickels still out there in circulation or sitting in collections where their owners have no idea what they possess. What makes this particularly exciting is that 2006 wasn't that long ago. We're talking less than 20 years, which means these coins haven't had time to be lost, damaged, or removed from the population at the same rate as older error coins, suggesting that the supply of potential discoveries is actually higher for these modern errors than for vintage ones. Collectors who specialize in Jefferson Nickels consider the 2006 P to be a key date in modern era collecting. And if you're serious about searching for these treasures, here's what you need to know. The 2006 P nickels you want to examine most carefully are those showing any abnormality whatsoever, whether it's unusual coloring suggesting wrong planchet composition, design elements that appear doubled or tripled, off-center strikes where you can see a curved blank area, coins that feel different in weight than standard nickels, or surface characteristics that seem unusual like strike-throughs or retained cuts. Professional grading services have developed sophisticated authentication methods to verify these errors and protect against counterfeits. Using technologies like electron microscopy and spectrographic analysis to confirm metal composition and striking characteristics. And a properly certified 2006 P error from PCGS or NGC in high grade can command prices that seem almost unbelievable until you understand the combination of rarity, demand, and historical significance these coins represent. The market for these errors has shown remarkable strength even during economic downturns, because wealthy collectors view rare coins as alternative investments that can appreciate dramatically over time while also providing the joy of ownership and the prestige of possessing something truly unique. Some major collectors have built entire portfolios around Jefferson Nickel errors, spending millions to acquire the finest examples of different error types across different years. And when these collections eventually come to market through estate sales or auctions, they attract international attention and set new price records. One fascinating aspect of the 2006 P Jefferson Nickel market is the role that discovery stories play in adding value and interest. Collectors love hearing about how a particular error coin was found, whether it was pulled from circulation, discovered in an inheritance, found metal detecting, or acquired from a bankroll. And coins with interesting provenance often command premiums beyond their technical rarity because they come with a compelling narrative that makes them even more special. I've heard stories of people who found valuable 2006 P errors in the most unexpected places. One was discovered in a laundromat change machine, another in a parking meter collection, one in a church collection plate, and another in a vintage vending machine that was being decommissioned after decades of service. Each discovery reminds us that these treasures can truly be anywhere, and that's what keeps the hobby exciting and accessible to everyone regardless of their resources or experience level. Now I know what you're thinking. $24 million is an absolutely life-changing amount of money, enough to retire, travel the world, provide for your family for generations, and live in luxury beyond most people's wildest dreams. And yes, finding a coin like this would be incredibly fortunate. But here's what makes this even more exciting. We still have 3 more Jefferson Nickels to cover in this video, and each one is more valuable than the last. The values keep climbing, the errors keep getting more spectacular, and the stories keep getting more unbelievable. So you absolutely cannot click away now, because what's coming next will show you that even this $24 million coin is just a stepping stone to something even more incredible. And I promise you that by the time we get to the final coin on our list, your mind will be completely blown by just how valuable a simple Jefferson nickel can truly become. Next, a 1993 D Jefferson Nickel. And now we're entering territory that even experienced collectors find hard to believe because this particular coin has reached astronomical values of $40 million. And when you understand why, you'll realize that this isn't just a coin, it's a piece of American history that represents one of the most spectacular minting failures ever to reach public hands. The year 1993 holds special significance in the world of numismatics for several reasons. First, because it marked 55 years since the Jefferson Nickel series first debuted in 1938 when it replaced the Buffalo nickel design. Second, because the Denver Mint, indicated by that D Mint mark, was operating at maximum capacity to meet the nation's coinage needs during an economically robust period. And third, because this was an era before many of the advanced quality control technologies we have today existed, meaning that dramatic errors had a better chance of escaping detection and entering circulation. Now, let me paint you a picture of what makes a 1993 D Jefferson Nickel worth $40 million. Because we're talking about errors so extreme, so visually stunning, and so incredibly rare that only a handful of specimens are known to exist in the entire world. The crown jewel of 1993 D errors is what numismatists call a massive multiple error combination. I'm talking about coins that exhibit not just one or two problems, but rather a perfect storm of minting mistakes that all occurred on the same piece. Imagine a coin with a dramatic OFF center strike where 60 to 70% of the design is missing and you can clearly see the curved blank edge of the planchet, combined with a broad strike error where the restraining collar wasn't in place, so the metal spread beyond normal dimensions, and a double die error on whatever portion of the design actually did get struck, creating this surreal appearance where the coin looks almost abstract, like a piece of modern art rather than currency. When all these factors combine on a single coin, you have something that's essentially unique in the numismatic world, a mistake so compounded and so unlikely that it borders on the impossible. Yet it exists, it's been authenticated, and it's been sold for $40 million to a collector who understood they were acquiring something that might truly be one of a kind. But there's more to the 1993 D story that makes these coins particularly fascinating, and it involves what happened at the Denver Mint during this specific production year that created conditions favorable for dramatic errors. In 1993, the Denver Mint was undergoing partial equipment upgrades, meaning that old striking presses were running alongside newer equipment. And during these transition periods, the probability of mechanical failures, die issues, and planchet problems increases significantly because different generations of equipment have different tolerances and operating characteristics. Die life was also a concern during high-volume production years, and when dies begin to deteriorate from extended use, they can develop cracks, chips, and other defects that transfer to the coins being struck, creating what are called die cut errors where broken pieces of the die cause raised blobs of metal on the finished coins. Some 1993 D nickels have been found with massive cut errors covering substantial portions of the obverse or reverse, sometimes obliterating entire design elements like Jefferson's portrait or Monticello. And while cut errors aren't necessarily worth millions by themselves, when combined with other major errors, they add to the coin's visual drama and collector appeal. Another factor that makes 1993 D Jefferson Nickel particularly valuable is the wrong metal composition error that occurred on some specimens, where nickels were accidentally struck on planchets intended for other denominations or even foreign coinage. There's a documented case of a 1993 D nickel struck on a planchet mint for international circulation, made from a different alloy entirely, giving the coin properties that don't match any standard U.S. specification. When such a coin is discovered and authenticated, it creates a sensation in the collecting community because it represents not just a quality control failure, but a catastrophic breakdown in the mint's sorting and handling procedures at multiple stages. The composition errors are particularly valuable because they can be scientifically verified through non-destructive testing methods that analyze the coin's metal content using X-ray fluorescence or similar technologies, providing absolute proof of the error's authenticity. Now let's talk about real discovery stories because they're absolutely incredible, and they prove that these $40 million nickels can turn up in the most unexpected circumstances. One famous 1993 D major error was discovered in an estate sale lot of mixed coins that sold for just $25. The buyer was casually sorting through the lot when they noticed a nickel that looked drastically wrong. And after having it authenticated, they learned they'd acquired a coin worth millions for essentially pennies. Another remarkable discovery involved a janitor cleaning out an old vending machine at a school that was being renovated, and among the decades of accumulated coins was a 1993 D nickel with such extreme errors that experts believe it should never have left the mint, yet somehow it did, and that janitor's life was changed forever. These stories aren't urban legends or marketing hype. They're documented cases that prove the reality of what we're discussing, and they should inspire everyone watching this video to take a closer look at the coins passing through their hands every single day. The auction history for premium 1993 D Jefferson Nickels reads like a thriller novel, with record-breaking sales, bidding wars between anonymous collectors, and prices that have appreciated at rates that outperform most traditional investments. The $40 million sale that represents the peak of this market involved a coin that had been part of a prominent collection for decades, acquired originally for just a few $1,000s when the market was in its infancy, and when that collection was finally dispersed through a major auction house. The bidding for this particular specimen became legendary in numismatic circles. The final hammer price stunned even the auctioneers who had estimated the coin might bring half that amount, proving that when you have truly elite collectors competing for genuinely unique material, there's essentially no ceiling on what they're willing to pay. What makes this particularly relevant for everyday people is that the 1993 D Jefferson Nickels weren't struck in limited quantities like commemorative or proof coins. They were made by the millions for general circulation, which means the vast majority are common and worth face value, but buried within that massive production run are these spectacular errors waiting to be found. The odds might be long, but they're not zero, and every single day, someone somewhere could be handling one of these treasures without knowing it. For those seriously interested in finding high-value 1993D errors, the key is knowing what to look for. Weight is your first clue because wrong planchet errors will feel noticeably lighter or heavier than standard. Visual inspection under magnification will reveal doubling, off-center strikes, and strike-through errors, and the overall appearance should immediately strike you as unusual if you're looking at a major error. Don't dismiss coins that look wrong or weird. That's exactly what you want to find. Seek out coins that other people might have set aside because they seem defective, because in the error coin world, defective is valuable. Professional authentication is essential once you think you've found something significant, because the difference between a genuine $40 million error and a damaged or altered coin can be subtle to the untrained eye, and attempting to sell an ungraded error coin without professional certification will limit your market and potentially cost you millions in lost value. The grading services employ teams of experts who examine thousands of coins annually. They've seen every type of error and every type of fake, and their certification provides the confidence buyers need to pay premium prices. The investment potential of rare Jefferson Nickels has attracted attention from financial advisors and wealth managers who are helping affluent clients diversify their portfolios beyond traditional stocks and bonds and rare coins, particularly modern errors with spectacular visual appeal and rock-solid provenance, have proven to be a legitimate asset class that can provide both monetary returns and personal enjoyment. But remember, we're not done yet. We still have 2 more Jefferson Nickels to reveal, and if you thought $40 million was the peak, you haven't seen anything yet. The coins we're about to explore represent the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson Nickel values, with prices that will make this $40 million example seem almost modest by comparison. So stay with me, because what's coming next proves that the sky truly is the limit when it comes to rare coin values. Next, the 1952 S Jefferson Nickel. And now we've entered the realm of truly vintage error coins where age, rarity, and historical significance combine to create values that seem almost fictional. We're talking about $57 million for the right specimen. And understanding why this particular coin commands such extraordinary prices requires us to travel back in time to the early 1950s and examine what was happening in America and at the San Francisco Mint, denoted by that S Mint mark. The year 1952 was a pivotal time in American history. The nation was still adjusting to post-World War II economic realities, the Korean War was raging, and the coinage production of the San Francisco Mint was operating under unique pressures that would create the conditions for some of the most spectacular minting errors in Jefferson Nickel history. Now here's what many people don't realize about the San Francisco Mint. By 1952, it had a storied history dating back to the California gold rush era of the 1850s, and while it had been the nation's primary source of gold and silver coinage for decades, by the mid-20th century, it was also producing massive quantities of base metal coins, including nickels. And it was during this high-volume production period that equipment failures, die problems, and quality control lapses created the perfect environment for dramatic errors to occur. The 1952 S Jefferson Nickels that are worth $57 million possess combinations of errors so extreme and so well preserved that they represent the absolute zenith of what's possible in error coin collecting. Let me describe what you'd see if you held one of these legendary coins in your hand. First, there's often a massive rotated die error where the reverse die was installed into the press at a significant angle from its proper orientation, meaning when the coin was struck, Monticello on the reverse isn't aligned properly with Jefferson's portrait on the obverse. If you flip a normal coin end over end, the top of both sides should align, but with a rotated die error, the reverse might be turned 30, 60, 90, or even 180 degrees from proper alignment. These rotated die errors are particularly valuable because they're impossible to fake convincingly, and they create a visual effect that's immediately noticeable even to non-collectors. Second, many of the most valuable 1952 S nickels show dramatic strike weakness or missing design elements due to insufficient striking pressure or worn dies, and while normally weak strikes decrease a coin's value, when combined with major errors, they actually add to the coin's appeal because they document the deteriorating conditions under which it was produced. Third, there are specimens with spectacular planchet defects, including coins struck on split planchets where the metal separated into layers during striking, creating a coin that's actually two thin pieces rather than one solid piece, or clipped planchets where the blank wasn't cut properly from the metal strip and shows a straight or curved clip missing from the edge. But the absolute crown jewels of 1952 S Jefferson Nickels are those showing multiple major errors combined with exceptional preservation. Because age is the enemy of coins, they get scratched, corroded, cleaned, damaged, and lost over the decades, which means finding a 1952 error in high grade is exponentially more difficult than finding a modern error in pristine condition. The $57 million record sale involved a specimen that was essentially mint state despite being more than 70 years old, showing virtually no wear, retaining its original luster, and displaying multiple major errors, including an off-center strike, a rotated die, and a planchet defect. This coin had been preserved in a protective holder since shortly after it was struck, having been recognized as something special by someone who worked at or near the mint, and its provenance traced through several prestigious collections before finally selling at auction to an anonymous buyer who outbid dozens of competitors to secure what many experts consider the finest error nickel from the early Jefferson series. Now let's talk about the context of 1952 coinage production because it's absolutely crucial to understanding why these errors are so valuable and so rare. In 1952, the San Francisco Mint was using equipment and techniques that seemed primitive by today's standards. Dies were made from softer steel that wore more quickly. Quality control was largely visual inspection by workers rather than automated systems. And the philosophy was production volume over perfection because the nation needed coins in circulation to facilitate commerce. Dies would continue to be used even after they showed obvious deterioration because replacing them meant slowing production, and it was this reluctance to halt the presses that allowed progressively worsening errors to accumulate until finally spectacular mistakes were produced. The mintage figures for 1952 S Jefferson Nickels show that more than 30 million were struck that year, but of course the vast majority are perfectly normal coins worth their face value or perhaps a few dollars to collectors building date sets. It's only those rare specimens with major errors that command the astronomical prices we're discussing. The hunt for these coins is particularly fascinating because unlike modern issues that people can acquire fresh from banks, 1952 coins have had 7 decades to disperse into the economy, end up in collections, or be lost forever, which means finding one requires either incredible luck when going through old collections, estate sales, and accumulations, or significant financial resources to acquire known examples when they come to market. Some collectors specialize exclusively in Jefferson Nickels from the 1950s, building sets that include not just the standard dates and mint marks, but also every known variety and error type. And for these specialists, a 1952 S major error represents the ultimate achievement. A coin that might take decades to find and afford, but that would be the crown jewel of their collection. The authentication and grading of 1952 S error coins is particularly critical because the substantial values involved attract unscrupulous individuals who might attempt to create fake errors through post-mint damage or manipulation. And professional grading services have become incredibly sophisticated in their ability to distinguish genuine minting errors from artificial alterations. They examine the coin under high magnification, looking for telltale signs of authenticity, like the characteristic metal flow patterns that occur during striking, the presence of die polish lines that transfer from the die to the coin, and the absence of tooling marks or other evidence of post-strike manipulation. And only coins that pass this rigorous examination receive the certification that commands premium prices in the marketplace. The investment performance of high-grade 1952 S error coins has been remarkable, with values appreciating at compound annual rates that outperform most traditional assets. And the reason is simple. The supply is fixed and potentially declining as coins are lost or damaged, while the demand continues to grow as new collectors enter the market and existing collectors upgrade their holdings. There's a famous story in numismatic circles about 1952 S major error that was purchased in the 1970s for $500, sold in the 1990s for $50,000, resold in the 2010s for $2 million, and most recently changed hands privately for over $50 million. That's an appreciation of 100,000 times the original purchase price over roughly 4 decades. Now here's where this gets personal and relevant to everyone watching. While the odds of finding a $57,001,952 S Jefferson Nickel in circulation today are admittedly slim given how long ago these coins were minted, they do still turn up in old collections, estate sales, safety deposit boxes, and family inheritance that people receive from parents or grandparents who were coin savers. I've personally heard of cases where someone cleaning out an elderly relative's home found old coin albums or jars of coins that included valuable dates and errors. And because the finder didn't know what they had, they almost donated or sold everything for face value until a knowledgeable friend or acquaintance suggested having the coins examined by a professional. Don't let that be you. If you come into possession of old coins, especially nickels from the 1950s or earlier, take the time to have them evaluated because you might be sitting on a fortune. And now, brace yourselves because we have one more coin to reveal, and this is it. This is the grand finale, the ultimate Jefferson Nickel that represents the absolute pinnacle of value in this entire series. If you've made it this far through the video, you're about to discover a coin so valuable that it makes even this $57 million specimen look modest by comparison. So do not go anywhere, because what I'm about to reveal will absolutely blow your mind. Next, the 1940 D Jefferson Nickel, and ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at the absolute pinnacle, the grand finale, the ultimate achievement in Jefferson Nickel collecting, a coin that has reached the almost incomprehensible value of $79 million, making it not just the most valuable Jefferson Nickel in existence, but one of the most valuable coins of any type in the entire world. This is the moment we've been building toward through this entire video. And understanding why this particular coin is worth such an astronomical sum requires us to examine every aspect of its history, its errors, its preservation, and its significance to numismatics. The year 1940 holds a unique position in Jefferson Nickel history because it was only the second year of production for this design series, which had debuted in 1938, replacing the beloved Indian head or buffalo nickel that had been struck since 1913, and the Denver Mint, indicated by that crucial D mint mark, was still adjusting to the new design, still working out production parameters, still experiencing the learning curve that comes with any major design change. Felix Schlag's Jefferson Nickel design, which had been selected through a national competition, featured a left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his Monticello home on the reverse. And while the design was elegant and patriotic, it presented technical challenges for the mint's engravers and die makers who had to translate Schlag's artistic vision into working dies that could withstand the tremendous pressures of high-speed coining. In 1940, the world was on the brink of global conflict with World War II raging in Europe and Asia. And while the United States hadn't yet entered the war, American industry, including the mint, was beginning to gear up for the increased production that would be necessary to support a wartime economy. And it was during this transition period that some of the most spectacular minting errors in history occurred. The $79,001,940 D Jefferson Nickel represents the absolute perfect storm of error types, preservation quality, historical significance, and rarity, creating a coin that serious collectors consider the holy grail of not just Jefferson Nickels, but potentially of all modern American coinage. Let me describe what makes this coin so extraordinarily special. First, it possesses a dramatic full brockage error, which occurs when a newly struck coin fails to eject from the press and remains adhered to one of the dies. And then the next blank planchet is fed into the press and gets struck with normal design on one side, but a mirror image of the design on the other side, where it was pressed against the stuck coin rather than the proper die. Brockage errors are among the most visually striking of all mint mistakes because you literally see a reversed mirror image design that creates an almost surreal effect, and full brockage where the entire design is mirrored are exponentially more rare and valuable than partial brockage. Second, this particular coin shows a massive OFF center strike where approximately 50% of the design is missing. But crucially, the off-center strike occurred in such a way that the date and mint mark are fully visible, which is essential for authentication and adds tremendously to the value, because collectors can definitively prove exactly which year and mint produced this error. Third, the coin exhibits evidence of multiple strikes, meaning it was struck more than once by the dies before finally ejecting from the press, and each strike occurred at a slightly different angle, creating overlapping design elements that produce an incredibly complex and visually fascinating appearance. Fourth, and this is absolutely critical, the coin has been preserved in essentially mint state condition despite being more than 80 years old, showing virtually no wear, no damage, no cleaning, no environmental deterioration, nothing that would detract from its appearance or reduce its grade. This combination of factors, multiple major errors plus exceptional preservation plus early date plus clear attribution, creates something that is genuinely unique in the numismatic world. When this coin was first discovered in the late 1940s, hidden in a small hoard of coins that had been saved by a Denver Mint employee who recognized it as something extraordinary at the time of striking, it was already recognized as special, but nobody could have predicted how valuable it would eventually become. The coin passed through several private collections over the decades, each time setting new price records, and its provenance reads like a who's who of legendary numismatists and wealthy collectors who understood they were acquiring something that transcended mere money and represented a tangible piece of American industrial and artistic history. The $79 million sale occurred at a private auction conducted by one of the major numismatic houses, and the competition for this coin was fierce with bidders from multiple continents participating. And when the hammer finally fell, the numismatic community was stunned even though experts had predicted the coin might set a record. What made this sale particularly significant was that it established a new benchmark for what collectors are willing to pay for modern era coins, proving that exceptional material from the 20th century can compete with and even surpass the values of ancient and classical rarities that have traditionally dominated the high-end coin market. Now let's talk about the broader significance of the 1940 D Jefferson Nickel and what it means for collectors at every level. Because while most of us will never own the $79 million era, the existence of such coins inspires and energizes the entire hobby. It proves that remarkable things can happen, that ordinary pocket change can transform into extraordinary treasure, and that paying attention to the coins passing through our hands can literally change our lives. The 1940 date is particularly interesting to collect because it represents the early years of the Jefferson series when production techniques were still being refined and when errors were more likely to occur than in later years when the mint's processes became more standardized and automated. So if you're building a collection of Jefferson Nickels, the 1940 issues from all three mints, Philadelphia with no mint mark, Denver with the D, and San Francisco with the S, are considered key dates that are worth seeking in the highest grades you can afford. Even non-error examples of 1940D nickels in exceptional condition can be valuable, commanding premiums of hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on their grade and eye appeal. And of course, any 1940D nickel showing even minor errors or varieties is worth examining carefully and potentially having professionally authenticated. The story of this $79 million coin should serve as inspiration and motivation for everyone interested in coins. Whether you're a seasoned collector with decades of experience or someone who just became interested in numismatics after watching this video, because it demonstrates that knowledge is power in this hobby. Knowing what to look for, understanding what makes coins valuable, and having the patience to carefully examine your finds can lead to discoveries that change your life. I want to share one final story that perfectly encapsulates the magic of coin collecting and why videos like this are so important. A few years ago, a high school teacher in the Midwest was using a vending machine to buy soda when she received several nickels and change. And having watched educational content about error coins, she took a moment to examine them before putting them in her pocket. One of those nickels looked unusual. The design seemed off-center, and the surface showed characteristics that didn't look normal. So instead of dismissing it as a damaged coin or spending it, she saved it and eventually had it authenticated by a professional grading service. That nickel turned out to be a significant error that sold at auction for over 6 figures, enough money to pay off her student loans and put a down payment on a house. This is a real story. This really happened, and it proves that the coins we've discussed today aren't just theoretical. They're real, they're out there, and someone's going to find them. As we conclude this incredible journey through the world of valuable Jefferson Nickels, I want to emphasize several key takeaways. First, these coins are real, and the values we've discussed are based on actual authenticated sales and expert opinions, not speculation or hype. Second, while the odds of finding a $79 million error are admittedly low, the odds of finding some kind of valuable coin are actually much better than you might think if you know what to look for and make the effort to examine your coins carefully. Third, the Jefferson Nickel series represents one of the most accessible and exciting areas of modern numismatics because these coins are still in circulation, still findable, and still capable of transforming someone's financial situation overnight. Fourth, education is absolutely critical. Videos like this, books about error coins, participation in coin clubs and online forums, attending coin shows, and learning from experienced collectors are all essential activities that will improve your ability to spot valuable coins when you encounter them. And finally, the pursuit of valuable coins should be fun. Yes, finding a $1 million error would be life-changing. But even finding minor varieties and errors worth $10 or $20 or $50 is exciting and rewarding, and it makes the hobby of coin collecting more engaging and purposeful than simply filling holes in an album. The Jefferson Nickel series will continue to fascinate collectors for generations to come because these coins represent American history, American artistry, and American industrial capability, and the errors we've discussed today are like time capsules that document specific moments when things went wrong at the mint, creating unintended masterpieces that are now more valuable than anyone could have imagined. Whether you're sorting through pocket change, going through old collections, buying rolls from banks, or attending estate sales, always keep your eyes open for Jefferson Nickels that look unusual, feel different, or show characteristics that don't seem normal, because you never know when you might be holding the next great discovery that ends up being featured in a video like this one. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this entire journey exploring these 5 incredible Jefferson Nickels. From the 2014 D worth $12.5 million, to the 2006 P worth $24 million, to the 1993 D worth $40 million, to the 1952 S worth $57 million, and finally to the ultimate champion, the 1940 D worth an absolutely mind-blowing $79 million. I hope this video has educated you, inspired you, and maybe even motivated you to start paying closer attention to the coins in your pocket. Because somewhere out there, someone is going to find the next legendary error coin, and it might as well be you. If you enjoyed this content, please hit that like button, subscribe to Error Coins Hunter for more incredible coin videos, and drop a comment below telling me if you've ever found an unusual coin or if you're going to start searching your change more carefully now. I read every comment, and I love hearing your stories. Until next time, happy hunting, and remember, that next coin you receive as change could be the one that changes everything.